So hello everyone. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here today with Tron Black. My name is Maria Carola and I'm the host of Swapzone's cryptocurrency interview series. And our exchange service supports Ravencoin. And today it's a pleasure to have Tron Black himself talk about Ravencoin, about the development, about the community, and about all the things that we find important. So first of all, probably you will make a little introduction for yourself and just talk to everybody who will listen and watch this interview.
Sure. My name is Tron Black. I'm a small part of Ravencoin and happy to be here. I work for, I'm principal developer for Medici Ventures, lead dev for Ravencoin, kind of a long time programming background. Got into crypto in about early 2013. And I love you guys, love your project, love Swapzone.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions you might have.
It's a real pleasure to have you loving our project. And what was actually, you joined the crypto space in 2K13, right? And what was the thing that got you in?
Yeah,
so like, what was the background of you joining the crypto space?
Yeah, it was actually the crisis around Cyprus, the banking crisis in 2013, where they basically closed the bank doors and then they basically said, we're going to take some amount of everybody's money. They were just going to take, just like a haircut from everyone. And that was kind of the catalyst because it got people, me and others thinking about money, but it also, people were like, in the chat room were saying, oh, the solution is Bitcoin, right? Where it belongs to you. And when you, hand your money over to the bank, it's not really yours. And it was kind of evidence, normally you think, oh, the money, I have this much money in the bank and it's mine. And so all of a sudden to kind of throw that out of whack and say, well, it's not really yours. We can take whatever we want. It was pretty disturbing. And
yeah,
so that got me looking at Bitcoin, right? And then I have a tech background, a business background, and whatever. And so it just resonated on lots of different levels. And so, I had heard about it before, but I'd heard about the mining, and to me in my head, right, I was wrong, but in my head, it was like some really hard thing that they were trying to dig for and find, and, like create some special digital number that was the Bitcoin or whatever. And I, at the time, of course, it was a misunderstanding. And it wasn't until 2013, they said, all right, well, what is this? And then dug into it and realized that mining is really just sort of a pacing puzzle that's intended to kind of pace the issuance of cryptocurrency. And that kind of changed. And that the cryptocurrency isn't some thing that you're digging for, but basically just a ledger that everybody has a copy of. And so it kind of changed my mindset. And I thought, that's pretty interesting. And then from there, it makes you think about the ability to move money, value of any type, as easily as email or a digital photo. And that's going to change a lot of things.
So mostly it was like the ideas of decentralization, of like all the tech background that got you in and got you kind of interested into that. And how did it transition like over time? Did your views change probably on something? Like did something else pop up that got you like even more excited in the space, or other way around? Like how it was the journey for you? This is pretty long, like 7 years.
Yeah, Yeah, no, it's been quite a journey. So there was lots of things that happened kind of in that time. It does make you think about money, where money comes from, what gives it value, right? Because you have all these people kind of saying, well, it has no intrinsic value or things like that. And it's like, well, it kind of just, it has the value of whatever people assign it, because there's just supply and demand curve, and where they cross, where people are willing to trade it, that is its value. And that seems very pure to me, right? It's just this collection of everybody. It got mixed into kind of how people think about governments and freedom and things like that. And I kind of had already kind of done that journey a little bit, and so I kind of lean towards the little bit more on the kind of freedom side of the equation, right? It's not anti-government by any means, but like the smallest possible government that the people kind of say, yeah, we really need this feature of government, and then the rest of it kind of doesn't need to exist, right? Where it's not a parent, it's a something that the people say, we want this feature, right? We want we want these laws and we want these enforced, and property laws and things like that. So it makes you think about all of those things in that space. And then it also introduced me to a lot of really, really interesting people, Eric Voorhees and different people that really have thought these things through. And so listening to them and going, yeah, that really makes sense. So it kind of shifted how I think about the world and things like that. So it's definitely been a journey, both in the technical and about how kind of the world should be constructed or could be constructed. And so those things kind of came with time and learning from all these amazing people that I've met in the space since that time. So
the cryptocurrency space is definitely interesting, can shape you in like many different ways. It happens to at least pretty much all of us who went into the space and started doing something there. But how do your like personal values, because like I can already see the correlation in between your like personal stance and the ones of Ravencoin, for example, because there's a lot about the community, decentralization, like all this freedom of money, freedom of transfer. But like, how would you explain the ties to like the particular project? What is important for you in it?
Sure. So it was modeled, I would say, largely after Bitcoin, right? Didn't have exactly the same origin story, but there was kind of an element of Bitcoin with it kind of showing up as code, and the person or group that wrote the code originally kind of like disappearing, kind of has this element of like, this thing is kind of standing alone on its own, and it's just the code. And so that appeals. And then you have other projects that are more database driven, right? So there's like, more corporate enterprise blockchain, and they have their place. But a lot of the advantages, maybe better said, some of the advantages of blockchain go away if you have like 2 or 3 CEOs that could kind of get together and kind of change things or whatever. So I feel like it has that element. Also, thinking about what makes, let's say, like if someone copied Bitcoin and then started it up, and then let's say 1,000 people did that. So there's 1,000. There's Bitcoin 1, Bitcoin 2, Bitcoin 3, Bitcoin 4. What makes the original better than the copy, since the code is identical, right? I mean, it's the code is exactly the same. So what makes Bitcoin and Litecoin not quite worth as much as Bitcoin? It's not just the fact that it has a different name, but a little bit it does have the brand, and what makes it valuable is the community and adoption and ethos, and there's a whole bunch of things that kind of go into it, and transaction volume and liquidity, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into making this valuable. It's not just the code, and so kind of being able to have those things recreated, it isn't easy, and honestly, Ravencoin has done better than I imagined. Right? It's just had so many amazing people contribute and become a part of it and be positive about it and become that really, I think, has been the best part of the journey, is seeing all the contributions to it, and I think that gives it value.
Do you think that the ideas of decentralization, because like I have been having this interviews for like, I don't know, it's probably the third time, and every time we stumbled upon these ideas of how decentralized building, how decentralized like governance, all these ideas are going to become more popular and make the cryptocurrency space even better than it is now, and especially like in the pandemic times, because like everybody kind of started working together probably more productively when everybody is remote, and these ideas of decentralization seem to be like coming back and shaping the space again, and like kind of in a different manner probably. Do you think that this like decentralized building and kind of like decentralized community is the future that we're all like waiting for, and like this is what cryptocurrency is going to make cryptocurrency like very much even more alive than it is now?
Yeah, so I like the idea of decentralized development, right? And this COVID thing has kind of pushed that. I work we're working all in one big beautiful building or whatever, and now we're just kind of spread out across the valley in our own homes. And things are still working great. I mean, the company I work for is very, very good and that's Medici Ventures and Overstock. They're really good at the tech side. And so they had all the pieces in place. We did a test on Tuesday, and then 2 days later, we're like, "Yep, okay, everybody's remote," because things were getting, the COVID thing was ramping up. I do think there's jumping back to the decentralization versus centralization. I think I'm going to separate two things. One is I think the decentralization really helped with the money part of it, because most governments don't like things that are considered money, because they're used to being able to just print it and get to use it first, right? So there were attempts in the early days, digital money in the U.S., where they just came in and just shut them down. They're like, this looks much like money. You can't make money, and so they shut them down. So decentralization allowed Bitcoin to happen. So I think that's fantastic. So and the fact that it got a value, it took a while, it took a couple of years, and then a pizza, and then all of a sudden it has a value. Once it had a value, that was like a big. I mean, starting the blockchain was one thing, but once it gained a value, that was actually a bigger step. It's sort of like, well, you're minting these kind of things, but then what gives them value? And so once it got a value and continued to grow, that was a huge step. So that was super important. And then once it crossed that Rubicon, got to that point and has a value, that was and it's been kind of on a ramp ever since. The decentralization is good in some areas, but not every area, because it's inefficient. So we're willing to live with the inefficiency of a blockchain, which is making a copy everywhere, checking every transaction on every node everywhere. Super inefficient, but a necessary thing to have something where it's a decentralized global currency, because otherwise there'd be servers in certain places that are checking it, and then that's subject to government oversight or whatever. So super important to have decentralization, but very, very inefficient, but necessary for cryptocurrency. Let me go to another part when you said that the decentralization of the workforce, or working remote. I think that's a great trend. I think it allows companies to use the best talent anywhere in the world, right? They don't have to happen to be living in a particular area, which then becomes very dense, like, more familiar with the US, but let's say in like a Seattle or a San Jose or something like that, or, where the cost of living becomes really, really expensive, and you have to go, you have 2-hour commutes because of traffic, and you have to move, to the edges and things like that. So now you can get the best brains, and they can live anywhere, literally, like on a beach in I know Barbados is doing a thing where it's like, hey, we've got good internet, come here, live for a year and work, wherever you're working, right? And so they're doing a program like that, which is amazing. So now you can live anywhere and then work together, with other people, kind of via Zoom and things like that. So I think that's great. I also think it benefits cryptocurrency, just because cryptocurrency is kind of not tied to a specific jurisdiction. So payments and things like that, remittances and payments are nearly instant, or nearly instant by today's standards, right? Instead of a day or 2 or 3 days for payment and settlement and checking with the bank and clearing and all of that, you have maybe an hour, right, at the most. So this ability to pay someone in a token that can be converted through something like Swapzone or through any exchange or whatever to whatever they want, that's amazing. And I think it really helps in paying people that are working remote in all of these places, and helps with the decentralization of the work. So I think they all kind of link together and tie together. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on the points, especially about this like decentralized and remote work and stuff like this. We have been discussing it obviously for like very long time because everybody had to work remotely at some point, and we kind of had to get used to that. And people like me, for example, I prefer to work from the office. So it's kind of weird for me to work from home, from the surrounding that's like not usual. But then you kind of start appreciating it at some point, and you're like, okay, actually, I could probably do more and like connect more people, even though it sounds like kind of ridiculous because you're sitting at home, but it actually gives you the opportunities to kind of expand. And probably the crypto space, like it's horrible to say that anything benefited from the pandemic, but it's like it's been pretty like progressive during the time. So where does
Yeah.
actually like Ravencoin stand? Like how was the development in these days? Like how is the development in general? Like what's the big goals?
Yeah. So development's still continuing. We have a team we meet every morning. In fact, we met about an hour ago. So we meet via Zoom every morning. We talk about kind of what we need to work on, what we need to fix, what we need to monitor. Obviously we had some issues, last few weeks that we had, that kind of took all of our attention. But yeah, we meet, we work on it. We've got testing and programming and it's continuing on. But then we also have meetings that we do that are public developer meeting on Discord every other Friday. And we talk about, the developers are all in there, the core developers, but there's also developers that have contributed, and there's second tier tools that are being built on top, projects and things like that. And so multiple people come in and kind of chat about kind of what we need to do next in different directions and things like that. So yeah.
So what are actually the things that are like the most major milestones right now, and what is like super important on the roadmap at the time?
Yeah, so a lot of the roadmap has been completed, meaning we did assets, we've done messaging, things like that. So a lot of this was in the core base layer. We have some things that are kind of remaining above that, which is one of the things we added was messaging, the ability to send information to the token holders. So let's say you issued a token. So that's one of Ravencoin's big benefits, is you can create your own token, right? Through a mobile phone, you can say, I want a token, it has to have a unique name. You get it and it belongs to you, and you're the only one that has that name. So it's like a domain name in that regard. Only one person can get that name. So now you have that token. So now that token, you could make 1 to 21 billion of them, and now other people use them. And they could represent whatever you want them to represent. They could represent an hour of your time, a share of an expensive painting. It could really represent anything. So now all these token holders have these tokens, and now if you want to communicate with them, with it, let's say in ERC20, they're in all these addresses, but you have no way of like saying, hey, we want to vote on this, what we do with this painting, or something like that, or somebody's looking for one of these hour of my time tokens. Does anybody have one that they want to sell, or whatever you want to send out, right, as a message. So the base layer is there, and it ties to IPFS, which is an interplanetary file system. So that's where the message actually goes, but the hash to that goes in the chain, so you know that the two link together. And so we built all that in, but we need to add more to the interfaces, so to the mobile app and to the Linux, Windows, and Mac app, so that when someone sends a message will pop up and it'll say, hey, whatever the message is. So some of those, I wouldn't call them second tier because we're building them right into the software, but some of those things still need to be built and fleshed out. So that's kind of what we're working on. And then also, because we had kind of a vulnerability, we're super sensitive to those things. And so right now we're kind of going through and kind of looking at what other things we can do to make sure that kind of stuff never happens again. So right now that's kind of our focus is how do we make sure that we don't, have a vulnerability like that ever again.
So this is probably the things that people are looking forward the most, because we had a user here who was asking like, what is everyone looking forward to next or most? Like probably this is kind of like a big thing that, so like name dots and a little square. name elsewhere, you have been answered. I think I'm going to tag everybody who asked the questions in here. And also, there has been a at Crypto Villager asking, I would like to know for sure what would happen to the securities created on Raven if someone hacks their code and issues all the remaining supply up to 21 billion. Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah. So that was actually a danger a few weeks ago. I'm going to assume that that's completely solved. We've got that kind of under control. But it's a valid question. Like, let's say that had happened, or let's say even for the sake of argument could happen again. So what we had a plan for that. We called it Plan B, and that was we had already kind of contacted the exchanges and had them hold deposits. The plan was basically to start by saying nobody wants that except the person that issued the 21 billion, right? I mean, that person wants it to continue on. Everyone else doesn't want that, right? Because that's like, nobody wants that except for the attacker. So we would just roll back the chain to the day before that. It would require everyone's participation. We would write the software. We would basically relaunch the coin at the day before. So that was Plan B. Kind of, we'll call it nightmare scenario, really bad, but also possible. And the reason it's possible is because everyone has a copy of the blockchain up until that point. So everyone could verify, oh yeah, we're good up until that minute, right? When this happened, everything else is good up until that point. So, yep. Not a pretty scenario, not great. I mean, reputation damaging and all of that, right? It's terrible. But that was the Plan B, right? So that we start over at that. We start at that point, and then everything would be, fine from that, from before that. So.
But well, at least there is a plan, which is already very important considering the possibilities of just having no plan and like being, oh my God, like some really bad stuff went down. But like at least everybody can be aware that there is a plan, guys. Like you can.
And I think every blockchain has that. Every true decentralized blockchain has that option, right? It's kind of the worst case scenario, but everybody has a copy up to of the ledger up until the day that there's some sort of catastrophic thing, and this would be true of of any coin. So
we have another question, which is probably a little bit not correctly worded, but it's about marketing efforts actually, and like Ravencoin is obviously distributed and decentralized, so you cannot really point out to like any people doing marketing in particular, but what are the magic tricks of you spreading the word of Ravencoin and like your stands and ideas? Because the community of Ravencoin has always been great, so like super active, super like welcoming. So what is the trick that you use?
So no magic trick. Honestly, this right here is probably one of the best things that we have is this kind of thing, an AMA or an interview or a podcast or a YouTube video from people who are interested, either from exchanges, mining, value transfer projects that are building on top of it. Because it is an asset platform that other people build their projects, on top of. And so those projects, they may have a podcast, they may have marketing, they may want to kind of show, talk about Raven and what it does and that kind of thing. So that's really it. We don't really have marketing dollars. There's nothing to prevent anyone from, basically getting a bunch of people together and say, we need marketing and, creating an address and depositing and creating sort of a foundation or something. And then using that and marketing from there. Bitcoin really doesn't have a marketing department, right? You can't call up the CMO of Bitcoin. And so we have that same kind of model. And there's pros and cons. I don't want to say it's the best model because, I mean, if a coin that collected a whole bunch of money or did a pre-mine, they have kind of a taint in the sense that, like, oh yeah, somebody was taking money at the beginning and that's not quite as fair or whatever. but they also have a bucket of money to do marketing. And so it's kind of this trade-off.
Yeah.
And we're on the side of no pre-mine, no dev set aside, no, no ICO, no selling of, no starting with a big bucket of coins. So very, very fair launch, et cetera. But which is great from a fairness perspective and all of that, but not great from oh, now we have a bucket of money to talk about it or to give away or to do things like that. So it's a trade-off, and we're really far on one side, on the fairness side.
But also, like, I believe that if you're open and welcoming to new members, and it's kind of like this community that just welcomes you right away. Like when I've been working with Guarda Wallet, we have integrated Ravencoin, and it's been like, whoa, guys, welcome, this is amazing. All this like waves of like super excitement and like super warmness and welcomeness. Like you want to market that, like no matter if you have a bucket of money or not. You're just like, you have the pleasure from like riding these waves and kind of surfing there. Like this is what we do right now as well, because like Ravencoin, sure, duh. Like who are we gonna have interview with?
Yeah, so that actually is one of the big benefits of Ravencoin is for people who didn't start with Bitcoin and are just coming in and just learning. And I'm not saying this is true of every place in Bitcoin, but some of the Bitcoin places are more hostile. Some are friendly, some are hostile, but it's kind of a mix, right? It's more of a do your own research, read the manual first kind of thing. Whereas I feel like the Ravencoin community is very it is welcoming. It is, you ask questions. There's people out there that will help answer them and things like that. I'll jump in and answer ones when I can, when I have time. But yeah, and it's also a learning thing. This space requires it's so different than what you're expecting with, let's say, a bank. And there's so much learning about how to secure and how it works and how it's important that you keep your keys and all of these different things that it's something that people just don't know. It's still that new that if people come in and start asking those questions, you want to be able to point them at resources and help them and bring them along. And I think Ravencoin has that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing that I would like to ask, like obviously you onboard lots of new people because like you answer the questions yourself, just like on Twitter, like whatever people are asking, which is amazing. And what do you think is important for the new people who join the space now and who are just starting their journey and who are probably like not super aware of all the like bad things, good things, whatever you call them, and like what's important except of doing your own research?
Yeah, so it's also weird. The space is weird in that regard too. Meaning, there's so much to learn. Like we talked at the beginning, right? It almost changes your mindset about what money is and stuff. And for a lot of people, that is a journey that they may just be starting. And so, pointing them at economics and technology and key security. I mean, there's just so many different elements. They may come in from different angles, different, what's important to them may vary. So you can't really teach. I don't think you can teach it all at once. And so it's really what's important to them at the moment. And then the more they get into it, the more they realize how big and world changing this is. I really believe that this is, I hate to say it's as big as the internet because it's actually riding on top of the internet, but it has that kind of element of like the early internet where you're like, okay, yeah, look, we can send some text and do a chat over the internet, right? And then it's like, well, yeah, but if we get a little faster, we can also do like email. It's like, what's email? And well, then you have an address and you can send it to them and it can wait. And so like there's layers, and pretty soon you're like, well, I'm doing all my shopping. I buy everything on Amazon, watching all my movies on Netflix. It's my entertainment. It's my video. And I feel like crypto has that same kind of element of, okay, yeah, at first it's like, oh yeah, you can transfer these things that, it's called Bitcoin. And, it's kind of like money and you can exchange them for dollars later and that kind of thing. To no. Change your mindset, right? This is value transfer. This is everything that you could possibly imagine where you don't want it copied because copying money is bad. That's just counterfeiting. it has that ability to now transfer value, but that value can be shares of this, and then you can start, because programmable money or programmable value, now you can start to combine it in different ways. And I think the DeFi thing is showing us that now you can do loans, and you can do you can get interest, and you can combine collateral, and you can do all these things programmatically. And I think we're just starting to see the beginning of that. And I feel like it's still like the beginning of the internet, where we're kind of getting to email, but we kind of haven't gotten to the fact that everybody's shopping line instead of walking into a store. And I think we're on that path. I think that's where we're at.
Okay, great. Actually, yeah, I think that this would be it from the questions that we've had. If you want to add something from the point of like what you just want to bring to the general audience, I would be glad to, because like we kind of started a little bit later, so unfortunately we're running out of time. But
okay,
like some last words that you would just get out there, and like to everybody who will be watching and listening and doing their research with the help of this interview.
Yeah, so a couple things. It's not the best website in the world, but kind of a good place to start is ravencoin.org. But there's not much there. It kind of spokes out into Discord and Telegram and things like that. We don't, the people, the core group, doesn't run that. We're not a company, and so there's volunteers running these other social media kind of things. But that's a good place to start and spoke out and start to learn about Ravencoin. If you're trying to introduce somebody to crypto, it's a good way to do it, because you could give them, make 10 Raven, just 20 cents worth of Raven, and let them kind of see what happens and play with it and send it around, and without breaking the bank and without paying a lot of fees, right? So you can very, very inexpensive to kind of get started and experiment and play with it. So it's a good place to start. If you do have questions, we can point you at resources and come into the, join the community, join the Telegram, join the Discord, join the discussion. It's pretty friendly. Yeah, we welcome everybody to learn about this, about crypto in general. And we're not, we're not Ravencoin and nothing else. I mean, try them all. Try, Doge and Litecoin and Bitcoin, and try everything. Experiment with it and see what's coming.
Okay, thank you very much. So also, of course, you can ask us questions about Ravencoin exchanging and like how to get Ravencoin, and I will also put the links in the description on how you can do it easily. And of course, drop by Twitter, Reddit, Telegram to ask questions to us if you have some questions about crypto exchanges. And just repeating myself, so today we're joined by Tron Black of Ravencoin. It's been a pleasure. This interview will be uploaded on our YouTube channel like very, very shortly, so everybody can see it. And thanks. I'm sorry that it was so brief. We kind of just like messed up the timing a little bit, but we can do it again. I would be glad to, and like probably
that'd
have
be great.
more
I'd love
time to talk about other crypto projects, maybe the space in general, how it's been developing and how it's going to develop. And so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.